On a quiet summer evening in June of 2021, in the small and usually uneventful community of Holly Springs, Georgia, a place just 35 miles north of Atlanta, where daily life rarely strays far from routine, an ordinary traffic stop turned into a tragic encounter that no one could have foreseen.
Yes, sir. What's in your pockets?
2317, 715, unit 4.
Let me see what's in your hand there.
Code 4, you're running into Denver.
2 officers were on duty that night. Sergeant Andrew Drake, a seasoned presence in the department, and Officer Joe Burson, only 25 years old, still early in his law enforcement career, but known for his discipline and calm approach. Sergeant Drake initiated a traffic stop after clocking a vehicle moving at 72 miles per hour in a 40 zone. The car had blown past the intersection at Harmony Lake Drive. It should have been straightforward, a citation, maybe a warning, nothing more. But the driver behind the wheel was not just another motorist. His name was Ansi Dolce, 29 years old, a man with a long and troubling history, a confirmed member of the violent money murder gang, a subset of the Bloods. He was on parole for robbery in New York and had an open domestic violence case in Illinois. And even more troubling, he had removed his GPS monitoring device nearly 2 years earlier, effectively disappearing off the grid. The U.S. Marshals had been watching him for weeks, tracking his movements across state lines, including surveillance near his mother's home in Waleska, Georgia, just days before. During the stop, Dolce gave the officers a false name, using his brother's identity, and failed to provide a driver's license. Inside the vehicle, the officers noticed a strong odor of marijuana, and in plain sight, they found several baggies labeled with the substance, along with a canister containing leafy green material. At that point, it was clear that he was hiding something. Dolce exited his vehicle, asking repeatedly to call his mother or an attorney, a request Officer Burson denied. When Sergeant Drake attempted to place him under arrest, this happened.
How come you have a fleet tag over the registration sticker?
You advised 73 of 93, 73 of 93.
Who did you rent it from? Hertz.
72393.
Sorry?
Can you call my mom, please?
Not right now. If you're being honest with us, should get you out of here shortly. After we're done,
my
man.
lawyer.
Cherokee to 716, code 4.
Not at the moment, no. Why do you need a lawyer if what you're telling us is true?
Because you guys are about to arrest me.
Why?
I know the
2318.
drill.
Sorry?
I know the drill. You said you smell pot, so we're going to search the car. So you're going to arrest me and detain me.
Is there pot in there? How much? No. Just, no. Stop. Go back.
I'm sorry. I was going to the car.
715, have return.
Stay on the ground!
Cut down. Code 7, 29, 29. Code 7. Hands behind your back! Hands behind your back! Get the car. Hands behind your back! Hands behind your back!
6 feet or 1015. 715 and 29.
Get out!
Without warning, he lunged back into the vehicle, slammed it into gear, and took off, dragging Officer Burson partially inside the driver's window. The car accelerated fast, barreling forward for nearly 1,000 feet as Burson held on, caught between duty and survival. In those final seconds, Burson drew his weapon and fired multiple rounds into the vehicle, striking Dolce in the process. The car veered off the road and slammed into a guardrail.
Have return.
Parking lot drop.
Shit.
Move.
Your no unit. What unit was that? Was it 60 or 17? See. I'm clear 17 and 29. Hickory at Harmony. Hickory at Harmony.
No, 6 here.
2319.
Got person in the car. Get that person in the car. Hickory Road.
Officer Burson, likely fatally wounded from the initial impact, was rushed to the hospital but was later pronounced dead. Dolce, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds, died shortly after at a nearby medical facility. Later, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation launched an exhaustive review, producing a 251-page report that concluded Officer Burson's use of deadly force was justified under state law. The district attorney added that had Dolce survived, he would have faced charges of felony murder, aggravated assault, obstruction, and numerous other offenses tied to his attempt to flee. There were no formal reparations issued by the city, no grand settlements, but a PayPal campaign organized by the local community raised approximately $90,000 for Burson's grieving family. In the end, a traffic stop that should have ended with paperwork and a signature instead ended in bloodshed. Officer Joe Burson, who had shown up simply as backup, never returned home, and the man who resisted, who had spent years evading the justice system, chose flight over surrender, sealing both of their fates in less than 60 seconds. Sergeant Drake, in a quiet moment later, said Burson had saved his life, and that not a day passes without the weight of that memory, because sometimes all it takes is one stop, one decision, and 1 second for everything to fall apart. On May 26, 2013, off the coast of Nigeria, the tugboat Jascon 4 was performing a routine task stabilizing an oil tanker in the Atlantic waters when, without warning, something went terribly wrong. Whether it was a rogue wave or a sudden mechanical failure remains unclear, but the result was immediate and devastating. The vessel capsized in seconds, sinking rapidly to a depth of nearly 100 feet below the surface, where it came to rest on the ocean floor, upside down. 11 crew members were on board. None were expected to survive. 3 days later, on May 29th, South African saturation divers from DCN Global were deployed to inspect the wreck and recover what were assumed to be only bodies. But what they discovered inside the sunken shell of the Jascon 4 was something no one was prepared for.
Yeah? Okay. What's that? Okay. Alright, you found one, yeah? He's alive, he's alive. Okay, keep him there, keep him there. Alright, just, alright, just hold him there, okay? Just keep him there. Calm, okay? Alright, just reassure him, pat him on the shoulder. Okay. Alright. Right, let's get that hat on his head so we can reduce the CO2, please. Just want you to keep calm, okay? Are you feeling okay? Are you sore? Have you got any injuries? Okay. What's your name? Harrison. Okay, Harrison. My name is Colby. Okay, I'm gonna bring you home, okay? And the driver that helped you now, his name is Nico. Okay, that's Nico, okay? You mustn't take your hat off, okay? You must just breathe nicely, yeah? Okay. Alright, let's go. You hold your umbilical and you listen to me, okay? Alright, we're going now. Put your head underwater and breathe comfortably, okay?
Harrison O'Keene, the ship's 29-year-old cook, had been in the bathroom when the vessel flipped. In the chaos that followed, as the cold black water flooded every corridor and chamber, O'Keene somehow managed to escape drowning, navigating the inverted structure by feel alone until he found his way into the engineer's office. There, trapped in total darkness, he discovered a single air pocket about 4 feet high, just large enough to keep his head above water, just long enough to survive. He was alone, in total blackness, with the dead. For the next 60 hours, Harrison remained trapped, breathing stale, shrinking air, listening to the groaning metal of the wreck and the distant sounds of sea life beginning to feed. He could hear the occasional thud of shifting debris, and worse, he could smell the decomposing remains of his colleagues in the surrounding water. When one of the recovery divers first saw his hand reach out through the murky water, he thought it was a corpse moving with the current. But when the hand grabbed back, he recoiled. Then, realizing what he was seeing, the diver shouted through the radio, saying, "He's alive." The crew rushed to equip Harrison with a diving helmet and prepared him for a tense and dangerous extraction. He had been trapped at a depth that no human should have survived, and if brought up too quickly, he could die instantly from decompression sickness. For the next 60 hours after his rescue, he was kept inside a pressurized chamber where his body was slowly reacclimated to the surface. Only then was he released, weak but alive, into the arms of his stunned and grateful family. According to National Geographic, a pocket of air the size Harrison was trapped in, approximately 13.5 cubic meters, could only sustain a person for about 56 hours before becoming lethal due to carbon dioxide poisoning. Harrison lasted almost exactly that long. His survival, as many would later call it, was nothing short of a miracle. But it wasn't just physics that kept him alive. O'Keen later revealed that in those hours of solitude, he recited Psalm 54 over and over again, the same passage his wife had texted him earlier that day. A prayer for deliverance, whispered in the dark. He said it gave him the strength to stay calm, the strength not to panic and to survive.
All right.
Light went off and the vessel capsized. And I was there trying to, and the WC fell on my head until my head. And I was there struggling on how I can be able to open the door. When I was right there in the water, when I have access to nothing, right down inside the water, I thought of my family, thought of my mom, my brothers, my wife. I have access to none of them, no way to get to them. And I was right in the water and I know I'm going to die. But the only thing I could put my hope and trust in and my confidence in is God. I don't know it's up to 3 days because I was thinking it's just a day, maybe it's getting to the evening. I was on there, keep on praying. When I prayed for some time, I stopped. And I said, God, let that will be done as it is in heaven, because I have tried my best. And I have called on you and you have never failed me before. And you will never fail me at all in my life. So as I said that, to me, if death comes, let it come. If death did not come, I know He's going to rescue me. So as I was there like that, I kept calm. And I was bold because I was not afraid anymore, because I know it's life and death. The line is already drawn. If you want to come, let it come.
The other 11 crew members were not as fortunate. Harrison O'Keen was the only survivor of the Jascon 4, a man buried alive beneath the sea, with only faith, instinct, and a rapidly disappearing pocket of air to keep him from becoming just another name lost to the deep. On August 7th, 2016, at the Schlitterbahn Waterpark in Kansas City, Kansas, something horrifying happened. That morning, the park had opened like any other summer day, filled with the sound of families, laughter, and the rush of water. But inside the towering frame of the Verrückt water slide, the tallest of its kind in the world, Verrückt, which means insane in German, had opened just 2 years earlier, in July of 2014. Standing at a staggering 168 feet and 7 inches, it was taller than Niagara Falls and marketed as a record-breaking attraction that would redefine thrill rides. Among the guests that day in 2016 was 10-year-old Caleb Schwab, the son of Kansas State Representative Scott Schwab. Caleb boarded the ride with 2 adult women, strangers, as the slide required groups of 3 to balance the raft's weight. But the balance that day wasn't enough. As the raft soared down the near-vertical drop, it gained more speed than it could handle. At the second hill, the raft lifted off the slide entirely, a design flaw that had already been flagged in safety tests. Caleb was ejected from his seat and struck a metal bar supporting the overhead safety net. He was killed instantly. The force of the impact had decapitated him. The two women on the raft suffered serious facial injuries, including a broken jaw and fractured bones, but survived. It was designed by John Schooley with assistance from Jeff Henry, the co-owner of Schlitterbahn. The project was rushed to meet a self-imposed deadline, partly to be featured on a Travel Channel special. The prototype was built in just 36 days, without input from certified engineers. Even before the slide opened to the public, there were warning signs. In 2014, at least 13 injuries were reported, including instances where rafts went airborne. Despite this, the slide continued to operate.
I don't know why people think this is a criminal case. It makes no sense to me that it's a criminal case. It's just not.
Investigators would later uncover a pattern of negligence. Internal tests conducted in 2014 showed that the rafts were prone to going airborne. Accelerometers used in test runs warned of serious injury, but the warnings were ignored. Just 3 weeks before the incident, the ride's braking system was flagged as faulty, and 10 days before Caleb's death, it had already failed. But the operations manager, Tyler Miles, refused to shut the slide down. He would later be accused of covering up previous injuries, including those involving the very same raft Caleb had ridden. The bigger picture was even more troubling. Emails revealed that Jeff Henry had imposed unrealistic deadlines. Schooley, the lead designer, had signed off on false safety certifications. All of it pointed to a decision that profit and publicity had been prioritized over human safety. In 2017, the Schwab family reached a settlement of nearly $20 million, with payments from multiple parties, including the Waterpark and companies involved in the ride's construction. Then, in 2018, a grand jury filed criminal charges. Jeff Henry, John Schooley, Tyler Miles, and the park itself were indicted, with counts including second-degree murder, involuntary manslaughter, and reckless endangerment. But in February of 2019, those charges were dismissed by Judge Robert Burns. He ruled that the prosecution had presented misleading evidence, including dramatized footage created for television, which may have biased the jury. The dismissal sparked widespread outrage. Many believed justice had not been served, and that the individuals responsible had escaped accountability. Meanwhile, the Verrückt slide never reopened. Its demolition began in November of 2018 and was completed quietly within 2 months. Today, the site where the slide once stood is being redeveloped into multi-sport complex. But what happened to Caleb Schwab wasn't a freak accident. It was the result of rushing deadlines, ignoring safety warnings, and covering up critical failures.
But I think you and your attorneys believe that negligence caused
accident. It's an accident. But there's an accounting because someone was negligent. There's times where you're just like, I can't look at that right now. Then there's other times, you can't sleep. You want to look at it.
What do you miss most about Caleb?
Giving him hugs.
Hugs.
Hearing about his day.
My morning hug.
A child lost his life, not because of bad luck, but because adults who should have known better chose not to act, and no one has ever truly answered for it. On July 17th, 2007, a domestic flight bound for São Paulo's Congonhas Airport, one of the busiest and most notoriously challenging airports in Brazil, became the setting of one of the deadliest aviation accidents the country had ever witnessed. TAM Airlines Flight 3054, a routine commercial route from Porto Alegre to São Paulo, had taken off at 5:19 p.m. local time. The aircraft was an Airbus A320-233, powered by two IAEV 2500 engines. It had entered service with TAM just 6 months prior, in January 2007, and despite accumulating over 21,000 flight hours, it was still a relatively young plane by commercial standards. On board were 181 passengers and 6 crew members, including Captain Henrique Stefanini di Sacco, an experienced pilot with over 13,000 flight hours, and First Officer Kleber Lima, who himself had more than 14,700 hours logged. But there was one critical detail about this particular aircraft. The thrust reverser on engine number 2 had been deactivated, a condition permitted under aviation standards, but one that added a layer of complexity to the aircraft's handling. especially during landing, and that decision would soon become central to everything that followed. As the aircraft neared São Paulo, weather conditions had taken a turn. A steady downpour had made the runway slick with rain. Congonhas was already known for its short runway and lack of grooving, a vital feature that helps drain standing water. That day, the runway was anything but forgiving. At 6:48 p.m. local time, Flight 3054 descended for its final approach, touching down on runway 35L at a speed of approximately 142 knots. What happened next was not immediately apparent to onlookers, but within seconds, it became clear that something was wrong.
Number 1, apenas. Coordenadas. Desacelera. Não tá. Não tá.
The aircraft failed to slow. Investigators would later reveal that the flight data recorder captured a critical error during landing. The left thrust lever had been pulled back to idle and then to reverse thrust, correctly activating the left engine's reverser, but the right thrust lever had remained in climb power, meaning the right engine continued pushing the aircraft forward at high speed, while the left engine fought to slow it down. The result was catastrophic asymmetric thrust. The auto brakes didn't engage, the ground spoilers never deployed, and within seconds, the jetliner was careening down the wet runway, unable to decelerate. It veered sharply left, slid off the end of the pavement at nearly 90 knots, crossed a major avenue, Avenida Washington Luis, and slammed into the TAM Express cargo building adjacent to a Shell gas station. The explosion that followed was immediate and devastating. The fire consumed the entire structure, burning intensely for hours, fed by the aircraft's full load of fuel. The scene was so destructive that identification of victims would take days. All 187 people on board were killed instantly, along with 12 others on the ground. The investigation by Brazil's Center for Investigation and Prevention of Aeronautical Accidents, CINIPA, concluded that the primary cause was pilot error, specifically the mismanagement of the thrust levers during landing. But the findings ignited a storm of debate. Some pointed to the aircraft's mechanical configuration. Others blamed the airport's infrastructure, a wet runway, no grooves, short length, and no adequate overrun area. And many couldn't ignore the fact that TAM Airlines had allowed a flight to land in such adverse conditions with a known deactivated thrust reverser. In 2011, criminal charges were filed against several TAM executives, including the airline's director of safety and its vice president. But in 2015, all were acquitted. Meanwhile, TAM's insurer filed a $156 million lawsuit against Airbus, a legal battle that ultimately went nowhere, as Airbus rejected responsibility, citing pilot action. The truth, like in so many tragedies, likely lies not in one single mistake, but in the convergence of several: poor weather, inadequate runway design, a partially inoperative aircraft system, and a single fatal error in judgment in the cockpit, all lining up in just the wrong way, at just the wrong time. And when it was over, the fire had gone out, the wreckage had been cleared, and the lawsuits had stalled. 199 lives were gone. The worst aviation accident in Brazil's history, and one of the deadliest involving an Airbus A320, left a deep scar on a country still reeling from the disaster. The runway was rebuilt, safety protocols were revised, and the conversations around infrastructure, maintenance, and pilot training continued. But for the families left behind, no system change could bring them peace. Just a silent stretch of tarmac, where Flight 3054 was supposed to land and never did.